The carving. A steady headache bloomed at the back of my eyes as I looked at the frozen turkey on my kitchen counter. The cold from the bird seeped through the laminate, numbing my fingertips. My first time hosting Thanksgiving was off to a rocky start. My mother's words echoed in my head. "Don't disappoint us, Diana. Just once, strive for perfection." Perfection, a lofty and seemingly unattainable goal. The sharp sound of the doorbell interrupted my thoughts. Through the peephole, a delivery man shifted impatiently, holding a long package wrapped in rough brown paper. "I didn't order anything," I said through the slightly opened door. He pushed a clipboard toward me. "Address checks out, sign here." The package was heavier than it looked. It had no return address, only my name written in an elegant script that seemed vaguely familiar. Inside was a set of carving knives nestled in plush red velvet that felt soft to the touch. Gleaming under the bright overhead light, the handles were crafted from smooth bone and adorned with intricate symbols that seemed to shift and dance when not directly gazed upon. A handwritten note fell onto the tile floor. "For your feast. Feed them well." I held the largest knife in my hands, feeling its powerful vibrations. The blade shone with a strange light that seemed not of this world, but still mesmerizing. Holding it felt natural, almost as if I had been meant to find it all along. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom demanding updates. "Everything better be perfect, Diana." The memories of last Christmas came flooding back to me. The broken plate from our disagreement, my sister Naomi's smirk as she hurled hurtful words at my perceived instability. I'm not mentally unstable. I'm simply exhausted from the constant bickering and my family's obsession with being superior to others. What a bunch of snobs. Almost instinctively, I used the knife to cut through the turkey's plastic wrapping. Its tip pressed against the frozen meat, drawing droplets that appeared darker than mere juice. "Deeper," a voice, sounding strangely like my own, only more primitive, whispered. The blade penetrated the turkey. A sharp cry echoed around me. I dismissed the sound as only being the wind. Time seemed to blur as I cooked, the knife moving with a precision that was almost surgical. It seemed to know things that I didn't: where to cut, how to slice, what parts would taste best. My hands were stained with something resembling blood, red and sticky with a sharp metallic smell. I was putting the finishing touches on the meal when the doorbell rang again. My family had never been known for their punctuality, so I was surprised to see them arrive promptly at 6. Each face that walked through the door was a reminder of my past failures and disappointments. Mom's perfectly coiffed hair and designer clothes, Dad's stern expression and disapproving eyes, my sister Naomi's smug smile. All of it made me feel small and inadequate in comparison. "Well," Mom said, her voice full of doubt, "at least it looks edible." The knife hummed in my hand, a comforting sound that drowned out Naomi's snide remark about making a mess. As I cut into the first slice, the meat parted like butter, revealing a deep red hue that seemed to glow under the warm lights of the dining room. I carved faster, deeper. The turkey's bones cracked under the weight of the blade, the juice splattering onto the white tablecloth. The droplets formed patterns that looked eerily similar to ancient script. The room suddenly filled with chaos and the sound of my knife slicing through flesh and bone. Naomi's smirk turned into a scream that was abruptly cut short as the blade found its way toward her, carving a deep gash in her neck. My mom's criticisms turned into choked pleas for mercy, but they were ignored as I continued to carve through the turkey's body with precision and fervor. The metallic scent of blood was overpowering now, filling my nostrils and making me dizzy. Bones broke with a sound similar to fine china shattering on a stone floor, the noise reverberating around the room like an echo of destruction. This was my solitary performance, accompanied by the chilling touch of my blade. Each cut was a retaliation for years of insults, every slash a step in my journey toward freedom. I was finally taking control of my life. Dad attempted to escape, but he was stopped by an unexpected slash from the knife. He fell to the ground, his once stern expression replaced with a look of shock and fear. The room fell silent as I stood over their lifeless bodies, surrounded by the remnants of the perfectly cooked turkey. The knife in my hand still hummed softly, almost like it was congratulating me on a job well done. I couldn't believe what had just happened. My family was gone, all because of a stupid argument about cooking a holiday meal. But at the same time, I felt relieved. Relieved that I no longer had to live up to their expectations or deal with their constant belittling. They were always so caught up in appearances and being better than others that they never truly saw or appreciated me. With trembling hands, I set the knife down on the table and surveyed the scene before me. Blood spatters covered my ceiling, creating patterns that looked like the stars in the night sky. The smell of iron hung heavy in the room, a scent as familiar to me as my own home. But then something caught my eye. The patterns formed by the splattered blood. They were similar to the ones on my phone screen earlier, ancient symbols that seemed almost otherworldly. My mind raced back to when I first held the knife. It had felt like it was meant for me. Strangely, like it was calling out to me. My reverie was cut short by the ringing of the doorbell. Through the peephole, I saw the delivery man's face again, his teeth shining like polished metal. As the delivery man stepped into the dining room, I couldn't help but notice how his presence seemed to fill the space. He had a strange aura about him, like he didn't quite belong in this world. "Ready for dessert?" he asked, his voice echoing in the quiet night. I nodded, feeling a wave of excitement and anticipation build within me. With one swift motion, I grabbed my knife and walked toward the table where I'd arranged my family, still sitting motionless in their chairs. As I approached them, their lifeless eyes seemed to follow my every move. My knife in hand, I was prepared to carve new traditions. My family waited to be served, their faces forever frozen in shock and surprise. This family gathering was a success. Perfect. Clean. Free. The delivery man watched with interest as I carved slices of flesh from each of my family members, placing them on plates with precision and care. The metallic scent of blood swirled in the air again as I made sure every plate had a fair share of meat. When I finally finished serving all 5 plates, the delivery man applauded me with genuine enthusiasm. "Well done," he said with a grin. "You have truly embraced the spirit of Thanksgiving." I smiled back at him and took my seat at the head of the table. The delivery man sat across from me and raised his glass for a toast. "To new beginnings," he proposed, his voice laced with the promise of hope. The crystal rim of his glass met mine in a soft chime before he savored a sip of the burgundy wine. I echoed his gesture, allowing the rich liquid to dance on my tongue, its satiny taste painting a picture of freedom and triumph. I then indulged in the delicious meal laid out before me. Each bite tasted like victory, an affirmation that I was finally free from my toxic family's expectations and control. Family is what you make of it, after all, and I'm eternally hungry. The secret family recipe. In a clumsy moment, I cut my finger with a knife while chopping a yellow onion. Pain shot through me, followed by the metallic smell of fresh blood. The bright red drops landed on the old pages of Grandma's cookbook, adding to the existing stains. The once vibrant leather cover was now faded and cracked from years of use. This book was an inherited treasure in our family, like a cherished clock. It held more than just recipes. It bore silent witness to our family history. Each stain and smudge hinted at meals cooked with care and love. Just 4 weeks ago, when Grandma passed away, she left me this book along with her large Victorian mansion, both filled with history and responsibilities that felt heavier by the day. Tonight was Thanksgiving, my first time hosting since becoming the keeper of our traditions. My hand shook slightly as I read Grandma's handwritten pumpkin pie recipe: cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger. But one key line had faded, the secret ingredient that made her pies famous. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, breaking my concentration. Mom's text said, "Remember what sets us apart. Follow the recipe exactly." The next message sent a chill through me. "Look in basement storage, behind the wine rack." I carefully made my way down the creaky wooden stairs into the basement, my phone clenched in one hand. I descended further into the musty, dimly lit space. The smell of mildew and rusting pipes filled my nostrils, reminding me of childhood visits to Grandma's house. As instructed by Mom's text, I made my way over to the wine rack and pushed it aside. To my surprise, there was a small door hidden behind it. My heart raced with anticipation as I slowly turned the doorknob and opened it. Inside was a small room filled with shelves upon shelves of old journals. I recognized them immediately. They were just like Grandma's cookbook, but much thicker and more worn with age. I picked a cookbook at random, flipping through its old yellowing pages. Each sheet was filled with detailed cooking instructions, secret ingredients, and cherished family recipes passed down through the generations. My heart raced as I realized the significance of these cookbooks. They were a hidden trove of our family's culinary history. The battered covers had dates ranging from 1847 to the present day, each marking a new generation's addition to our ancestry. Among them was a new one with my name, its pages untouched and ready for my own stories. As I delved deeper into the ancient records, I noticed the names of my predecessors: Great-Great-Grandma Matilda, Great-Grandma Beatrice, and Grandma Rose. My sense of pride for being a part of such a powerful lineage quickly turned into a swirl of nausea, which then transformed into an unsteady sensation in the pit of my stomach. A chill ran down my spine as trepidation crashed in. A disturbing pattern emerged. Each Thanksgiving coincided with an inexplicable gap in our family tree. And now, as I decoded these centuries-old recipes, the horrifying truth hit me. Essence of Uncle George, aged 45 years. Prima Materia of Cousin May, distilled at 27. Spirit of Father, refined through grief. Each dish wasn't just about tantalizing tastes, but also appeared to connect to someone's untimely demise. The doorbell rang, interrupting my macabre thoughts. Aunt Gertrude's arrival snapped me out of my morbid thoughts, but the uneasy feeling in my stomach persisted. She walked into the kitchen, her smile as cold as the winter wind. She immediately noticed Grandma's cookbook on the counter. "Using this old thing?" she asked, picking up the book with a respect and reverence that seemed out of character for her. A piece of paper fell out. It had my father's name written in fresh ink. Gertrude grabbed my wrist, her hand icy and firm. "The secret ingredient," she whispered, her breath smelling of stale mint candies. "Our family's wealth isn't just luck or good business sense. Each generation pays a price." Gertrude's words sent a chill down my spine. I remembered all of the strange occurrences in our family that I had brushed off as coincidence or bad luck. The missing members at family dinners, the hushed arguments, the strange looks exchanged between relatives. It all suddenly made sense. I looked at Aunt Gertrude with wide eyes, but she seemed unfazed by my shock. "It's been this way for centuries," she continued passionately. "Our bloodline fuels our wealth. Did you think success was free? Every meal requires a sacrifice." My eyes moved to the shiny kitchen knives laid out for dinner preparation, their reflective surfaces creating an unsettling play of light and shadow. Gertrude saw where I was looking and laughed. "Your hunger is part of your heritage," she said, her eyes shining with a strange light. The oven timer beeped, breaking the tension between us. My pies were done baking and filled the air with sweet and spice. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my side as Gertrude stabbed me with one of the blades. "A necessary ingredient for our family recipe," she whispered into my ear as she removed the knife and picked up Grandma's cookbook again. Rose would have approved. Gertrude seemed completely unaware of the significance of what had just happened. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness. I'd seen my empty volume, waiting to be filled with my own stories. I'd also seen the oldest of our family's books, its pages still stained with the blood from that first Thanksgiving meal. The sacrifice had to be willing. Any forced sacrifice would curse our family forever. As Gertrude continued humming, I couldn't resist picking up the knife she had carelessly dropped. With a swift motion, I flung it through the air. It struck Gertrude in the chest, her blood mixing with that of our ancestors on the pages of Grandma's cookbook. This marked a significant shift in power within our family. The doorbell rang again, more family members arriving for dinner. I sprinkled Gertrude's blood onto my pies as steam rose from them, making shapes that resembled faces in pain. Wearing an apron now stained red with blood, I opened the door to welcome my guests. "Right on time," I chirped happily, smiling like Grandma used to. Pie is ready. The family gathered around the table, each seemingly famished, each taking a slice of pie. As they lifted their forks and the steam rose from the spiced meat pieces, I felt a twisted sense of unity in our shared blood and hunger. Little did they know, as they eagerly ate their meal, they were consuming one of their own. With each bite, I felt my strength grow as Gertrude's life force flowed within me, fueled by the energy of generations of sacrifices made by my ancestors. Next Thanksgiving, there would be one less person at the table, but it wouldn't be me. Now, keeper of Grandma's cookbook and hungrier than ever, I was ready. Twisted tradition. Changing family traditions can be as difficult as uprooting an old stubborn tree. As the first light of dawn broke on Thanksgiving Day, I found myself navigating through the thick forest. The cold, heavy rifle in my hand and the task of hunting our holiday turkey was a weighty responsibility. My father, who strongly believed in hunting our own food, had passed this duty on to me. He would often say with certainty, "Nothing tastes better than what you've hunted yourself." Now that he was gone, it was up to me to carry on this tradition. I could feel the biting chill of frost crunching beneath my boots, while my breath condensed into tiny fleeting clouds in front of me. The woods were ominously quiet, save for the occasional snap of a twig underfoot, a sudden rustle at the edge of my peripheral, a flurry of russet feathers against the monochrome landscape. Swiftly, I raised my rifle to shoulder height, finger poised over the trigger. A splendid turkey strutted confidently into view, its regal form clad in iridescent feathers that shimmered under the rays of the morning sun. Our eyes met, and within that gaze was an unexpected intelligence that took me aback. Recognition, maybe, and hunger. I hesitated. In a flash, the turkey lunged at me. 20 pounds of feathered fury slammed into my chest, propelling me backward onto the frozen earth as my rifle slipped from my grasp. Pain blazed across my face as sharp talons raked my skin, while I flailed in panic. My vision became a chaotic maelstrom of red and feathers, before darkness crept in from its edges, until there was nothing but silence. Awakening to the smell of roasting meat wafting through the air, I momentarily believed myself back home and dismissed the ordeal as a nightmarish dream. Then reality hit me like a punch to the gut as I opened my eyes. I was sprawled on an enormous table, nestled amongst gnarled trees with grinning jack-o'-lanterns hanging from every branch. Mounds of gourds and cornucopias teemed with squirming masses that I couldn't and didn't want to identify. Turkeys were everywhere, perched on every available surface, their watchful eyes piercing into me. Fear surged through me as I found myself bound with ropes of intertwined corn husks. A metallic clanking sound drew my attention toward the largest turkey I'd ever seen, pushing a cart filled with gleaming silverware. It cocked its head to one side, scrutinizing me before it spoke. "We're delighted you could join us for dinner." Its beak clicked with each word spoken, which seemed impossible. "I'm certain you have questions," it continued while selecting a threatening carving knife. "But we simply don't have the luxury of time for explanations. You see, we're starving." The assembly of turkeys gobbled in agreement. Their cacophonous chorus sent a shiver down my spine. "Now then," the lead turkey declared, ominously looming over me, "let's discover your flavor." As the knife descended toward me, I clenched my eyes shut, bracing for the imminent pain, when suddenly I felt a gentle nudge on my shoulder. "Hey, are you okay?" I jolted awake to find myself sprawled on the forest floor under the concerned gaze of another hunter. "Saw you fall over there," he said nonchalantly. "Looked like you were having quite the nightmare." Relief washed over me, realizing it was all just an absurd hallucination brought on by an unfortunate fall. "Thanks," I managed to say, accepting his hand up. "Must have hit my head pretty hard. Had this crazy dream about murderous turkeys." The hunter let out a booming laugh at my response, cautioning me about the fierce nature of these birds when they feel threatened. He then disappeared back into the dense woods, leaving me once again on my own. As I turned to leave, I was stopped by an unusual sight. A giant turkey, half hidden behind a fallen log. It was larger than any bird I'd ever seen. The turkey tilted its head, looking at me in a way that seemed thoughtful. We locked eyes again in a strange mix of hunter and hunted. It winked at me. A wave of discomfort rolled down my back, making my blood run cold and my heart race. The taste of fear filled my mouth, and the smell of wet leaves intensified the oddity of our silent face-off. My heartbeat echoed in my ears like a drum signaling danger. Ignoring the tingling crawling on the back of my neck and the disturbing quiet, I took off running. My boots crunched on dry leaves as I sprinted without stopping for breath or reconsideration, seeking the safety inside my car. My fingers trembled as they gripped the worn leather of the steering wheel, a familiar touch that helped to calm my nerves. I kept glancing nervously into the rearview mirror, my heart racing in fear. The road behind was eerily quiet, filled with ominous shadows and a creeping fog that seemed almost sentient. Despite driving away from the forest, I couldn't shake off an uncomfortable sensation of being watched. The image of the gigantic turkey continued to haunt me, its beady eyes burning into my memory. A nagging thought consumed me. Was it all just a figment of my imagination? Or were there really malicious turkeys lurking out in the world? I couldn't make sense of any of it, but one thing was for certain: this year we're having ham.